sing Jai Radha Madhava, and then we'll speak from Bhagavad Gita. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Abhyanatamandasya Jananjana Sarakaya Chaksulaminitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sa Pandantikam. So we will read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're reading from the 11th chapter, entitled The Universal Form, text 53. Naham Veder na tapasya na danena na chejaya sakya evam vedo drastum drastavan asimam yata. Translation. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Purport. Krishna first appeared before his parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, in a four-handed form, and then he transformed himself into the two-handed form. This mystery is very difficult to understand for those who are atheists or who are devoid of devotional service. For scholars who have simply studied Vedic literature by way of grammatical knowledge or mere academic qualifications, Krishna is not possible to understand. Nor is he to be understood by persons who officially go to the temple to offer worship. They make their visit, but they cannot understand Krishna as he is. Krishna can be understood only through the path of devotional service, as explained by Krishna himself in the next verse. What is the goal of life? The goal of life is to understand who I am, where have I come from, and what is my final destination. Or, stated in other words, the goal of life is to know that I am the eternal servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Krishna means that God is all-attractive, and therefore in Sanskrit he is addressed as Sri Krishna. But it is not so easy to understand Krishna as he is in truth. And therefore it is mentioned in this verse by Krishna that the form which Arjuna, the disciple and student of Krishna, was seeing before him, a form which is just as we see here, Kalachandji, this form, Krishna, two-handed, as we see him in a human-like appearance. This form is not easy to understand. It is mentioned earlier in the Gita avajananti man mudha manushintana mashritam param bhavama jananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Foolish persons discount or deride the personal human-like form of the Lord as being some type of a fantasy, a fairy tale, a myth. They cannot understand that this form, just as we see here, can be the source of all creation. They cannot understand that this is actually the eternal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because they maintain so many material conceptions when they think in terms of God. The first conception is that since I have a form, God, who is not like me, must have no form. Or in other words, that since all the forms that I have experience of in this world are made of matter and are limited, therefore, when I conceive of the form of God, even if I'm told it's a spiritual form, form must be limited. And when I see some finite form, it must be subject to time. And therefore it cannot be eternal, because all the forms which I perceive in this world are always subject to time, past, present, and future. They have come into existence, they will remain for some time, and eventually they will cease to exist. Whereas God is eternal, so how can you say that God has a form? Because forms made of matter are mutable, they're changeable. Now all of these conceptions have one basic flaw, and that is that they are dependent upon the limited intelligence of imperfect human beings. And when it comes to understanding the absolute truth, although we may apply our logic and our reason, ultimately, knowledge of the truth is coming from the truth itself. That is to say, it must come in a process of descending knowledge, not ascending knowledge. We are limited, but God, the absolute truth, is unlimited. So with our limited intelligence and with our limited senses, it is not possible to be able to understand of our own what God is. And therefore we accept the very version of the Vedas, Sabda Brahma, transcendental sound, as the best source of knowledge or the best source of evidence, and not simply our own intellect or our own sense perception. Arjuna is able to see Krishna standing before him because Arjuna is stated here to be able to, he has transcendental eyes. These transcendental eyes are not the ordinary eyes which we have. Because with our eyes, there are tremendous limitations. For example, were it not for the sun, were it not for the artificial electric lights, we would not be able to see each other today. A thin little membrane of skin, the eyelid, when it comes down over the eyes, blocks our vision. Therefore, what is our power of seeing? It is very limited. But Arjuna has transcendental eyes. What are those transcendental eyes? They're described by Lord Brahma. Premanjana charita bhakti valochanena sandasa deva hridayesha valokayanti yam shama sundaram achinta guna sarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. These transcendental eyes are eyes filled with the love of devotion. This is a qualification which Arjuna has, which enables him to be able to behold the original form of God. He has unalloyed devotion for the Lord. Unalloyed devotion means He does not mix his devotion with material desires, as we see so many do. They go to a temple, to a church, to a synagogue, to a mosque, and they make their prayers before God much as one might do if he went to a supermarket with a long shopping list. I need this, 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 and this. So please, bring it to my house at 5 o'clock this evening, because I have to cook dinner. This type of mentality spoils pure devotion. Pure devotion means when we make no request to God other than the ability or the ability to be able to serve Him, the permission to be able to serve Him. This is the actual request that a pure devotee places before the Supreme Lord. My dear Krishna, please let me serve you. And actually that is the translation of Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna means, O Krishna, O Srimati Radhika, please allow me to engage in your service. Krishna tells Arjuna in this verse that you have transcendental eyes and you are beholding me. And with these eyes you may see me. But there is no other method, he says, except unalloyed devotion, which has granted you this vision. And then he proceeds to name some things which are not in and of themselves capable of helping someone to see God. And he states, I cannot be seen simply by those who study the Vedas. Now, the Vedas are the foremost scriptures of the world. There is no comparison. They are the encyclopedic, scriptural documents. And practically all other scriptures of the world, the knowledge contained within all other scriptures, is easily included within the Vedas, plus so much more. And yet Krishna says that even you study all the Vedas, I will not be understood. Vedesha durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto. Lord Brahma confirms this point. I cannot be understood simply by Vedic study. Why? Because the Vedas are meant for all classes of persons, all classes of devotees. And not all devotees are of equal caliber. Some are very advanced, some not so advanced. And therefore, Krishna has presented many levels of spiritual education within the Vedas. Now, there are certain government secrets, which they're called top secret, which the government protects very carefully so that this information will not fall into the wrong hands. Similarly, Krishna protects certain portions of the most confidential knowledge by very carefully concealing that knowledge within the Vedic literatures. And only a very, very expert devotee will be able to find out those portions of the Vedas which actually reveal Krishna in full. And therefore we find in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna says to Arjuna, don't become bewildered by the flowery language of the Vedas. Meaning, don't become distracted by those sections of the Vedas which are meant for those who are materialistic devotees. Only focus on those portions of the Vedas which are meant for pure devotees. There are so many materialistic devotees, as I mentioned, so many persons who make material demands upon God. But Arjuna is not such a person. And for Arjuna, only the most secret, confidential knowledge of the Vedas is essential. And Krishna describes that. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says, because you are non-envious, anushuyave, because you are not envious. This is a very important point. He said, because you are not envious, I'm going to describe to you the most confidential knowledge of the Vedas. Envy is the root cause of our coming within this material world. Because we are envious of God, we have had to come within this world. And it is only by giving up that envy that we will be able to exit from this world. So Arjuna is told that you are not envious. Therefore I can describe this most confidential knowledge. What is that confidential knowledge? That confidential knowledge is very, very difficult to realize. Even for big, powerful controllers of the universe like Brahma and Shiva, even they find it difficult to believe or to know the absolute truth properly. You see in this picture here, Krishna is sitting having a picnic with his cowherd friends. And up in the sky you will see someone flying on a swan airplane. That person is Lord Brahma, the engineer of the entire universal creation. And what is he doing? He is puzzled. He's sitting up there with his bird's eye view, and he is puzzled. He's not sure. Who is this person? I've heard a lot about him, but it's hard for me to believe that this little boy, Krishna, could be the cause of all causes, the original personality of Godhead. So Brahma played a trick. He stole away all those boys completely and stuck them away in a mountain cave. Krishna was looking after the cows, and when he came back he found that all of his friends were gone. Of course, because Krishna is, in fact, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knew exactly what was going on. He knew that my servant, Lord Brahma, doesn't understand my position. So, as he has tried to trick me, I will out-trick him. And immediately Krishna duplicated all of the cowherd boys and made a new set of cowherd boys, which were actually himself. And for 1 year he maintained all of these duplicate cowherd boys. And when Brahma came back, which for his time, that 1 year was but a moment, when he came back and found a whole new set of boys, he thought, what is going on here? He immediately rushed back to the cave, and he found that the boys were in the cave. Then he came back and saw, no, they're in front of me. So he went back and forth, and then he became very puzzled. Then Krishna started to laugh. And while Brahma was looking on, immediately all of the duplicate cowherd boys, who were actually expansions of Krishna, they all turned into four-armed Narayan features of the Lord. And Brahma's amazement, knew no bounds. He was astonished. And later on, he offered prayers to Krishna, and he said that some may say that they know you. Some may claim that they can understand God. But for myself, I can now realize that I know very little about your glories. So Brahma and Shiva all admit that to understand this personal, human-like form of Krishna is very, very, very difficult. And therefore it's mentioned here, not simply by studying the Vedas, but by unalloyed devotion alone can I be understood as I am standing in front of you. Nor by undergoing serious penances. Many people perform serious penances, tapasya. Of course, we see that nowadays people perform tapasya for the wrong purposes. To achieve some political end. They might fast or burn themselves. In India, we saw so many students in the last year, young students setting their body on fire because they didn't like the government. It's a very severe penance, isn't it? To take one's life. And, people perform penances for, perhaps we see in that book, the Guinness Book of Records, right? One man performed the penance of allowing hundreds of thousands of bees to sit on his body for many, many hours on end. It wasn't very easy. And they have many different types of penances. How many people can fit within a telephone booth for how many hours? But what is the purpose of all of these penances? You can see some cheap name and fame only. And there are more sincere persons. They perform penances also for spiritual realization. But Krishna herein declares that even if you do penances severely for spiritual realization, still it will not be enough to know me. Why? Because without the ingredient of devotion, penances are incomplete. We see that in the form of so many big persons like Hiranyakasipu and others who did penance, and even great munis like Durvasha Muni who did penance. Penance alone is not enough. Study of the Vedas alone is not enough. Nor by charity. This is another thing, that people give charity. They give large sums of money for some good cause. Starving people, the homeless, the needy. Why? Perhaps to relieve their suffering, perhaps to increase their own prestige. Or they give in charity for a really good cause. I'll help to open a new temple. But Krishna says, not simply by charity. The charity has to be perfectly directed, without any motive. Then I will be understood fully. Not by charity, nor by worship. And Prabhupada makes a very apt statement here. He says, nor is Krishna to be understood by persons who officially go to the temple to offer worship. They make their visit, but they cannot understand Krishna as he is. There was a song recently made in England by one rock musician, Boy George. The song is called Bow Down Mister. Perhaps you have heard this song. In England it is in the top 10. So Boy George made this recording after visiting Vrindavan. He went to visit Vrindavan and he stayed at the Krishna Balaram temple, our temple there. The picture is there. So while staying there, he went to the temple every day and he saw the devotees bowing down. Then he went to the other temples of Vrindavan, but he saw many people were just going like this. So he thought, why aren't they bowing down? And of course he knows that in the West, nobody bows down practically. Nobody even goes to the temple. So he wrote this song, Bow Down Mister. His point was, if you don't bow down, he said, then you're going to get caught by the law of karma. So people come officially and they only go like this, and they make some prayer or something. And Prabhupada is saying such official visits will not actually help us to understand Krishna. That's one of the unique things about coming to an ISKCON temple. You don't just get to see the deity. You don't just get darshan or a little chanamrita. You get to, hear a lecture in which people tell you you're a fool, you're nonsense. So this is a special feature of ISKCON. You come here and you get insulted. But actually, we need to be insulted. Because we're all fools. You see? We're all fools. Because we all have so many misconceptions, so many wrong ideas, so many big egos. And therefore, if we don't get transcendental knowledge, how will we ever get freed from all of these misunderstandings, these blocks, which are preventing us from actually getting what we really want and need, which is to love Krishna. So the wonderful feature about the ISKCON temple is you get some transcendental knowledge when you come there. You get to hear a lecture explaining Bhagavad Gita as it is. And this is very wonderful. So, official visit to the temple will not do. Now, Krishna says that what you really need to do will be explained by me in the next verse. And I will just read that without the purport, because the purport is very long. This is a very wonderful purport. And if you have the Bhagavad Gita at home, not just any Bhagavad Gita, because you will not find the Bhakti Vedanta purports in any other version of the Gita. You have to get this Bhagavad Gita as it is. If you read the 11th chapter, text 54, you will see a very marvelous purport. The verse is also wonderful. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. And again in the next text, my dear Arjuna, he who engages in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of fruitive activities and mental speculation, he who works for me, who makes me the supreme goal of his life, and who is friendly to every living being, he certainly comes to me. Now here we find out exactly what Krishna means by undivided devotion. Now you can make a checklist of your qualification for understanding Krishna. These are the qualifications which Krishna tells us we must have. You must engage in pure devotional service. And what is that? Free from fruitive activities. That means that you cannot expect to understand Krishna fully so long as you have many material desires and you work hard to fulfill them. Krishna, who is sitting within your heart, he will fulfill that desire of yours. As man proposes, God disposes. As you propose to God that you want this, 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 and this, he'll willingly, gladly give you these things. Gladly he'll say, oh, that's all you want? You mean you just want a big new house? No problem. You want a Cadillac or a Mercedes? No problem. Now someone might say, no, I want much more than that. Say, I want, well, you have to say what you want, but someone might go all the way up to the point, I want the biggest things of all. I want to be a multi-millionaire. No problem, Krishna says. I'll give you the intelligence how to do it. If not in this lifetime, I'll give you so much good karma that in your next lifetime you'll get it. Or in 10 lifetimes you'll build up to it. No problem. Now, if you get very frustrated and you say, well, how about liberation? I'm tired of all these material things. I want to give up my individual existence and merge and become one with God. Krishna says, no problem. That too I will give you. But if you say, no, I don't want a Cadillac, I don't want a Mercedes, I don't want a big house, I don't want to become famous, I don't want followers, I don't want this or that or millions of other material things, I don't want liberation. Krishna says, well, what do you want? And then you say, I want you. I want to love you. Then Krishna says, now wait a moment. Are you sure of this? Are you sure that that's really what you want? Here, let's see if you really want it. Now I'll give you fame. Now you may get intoxicated with fame. Or I'll give you wealth. Unlimited wealth. This may be very difficult to be able to withstand the position of having so much wealth and still want to say, no, I don't want these things. Krishna is going to test you. But when you can say to Krishna, no, I don't want these things. I don't care how much wealth you give. You can give me unlimited wealth, more than all of the Arab sheiks have in the Gulf. And still, I will not be tempted. So you can make me more famous than the most famous person in history. I'm not interested at all in such fame. Now Krishna's wondering, are you still going to say this, that you want me? Why is Krishna so careful? You know why? Because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When you demand that you only want Krishna, when you become Krishna's unalloyed, pure devotee and servant, Do you know what Krishna has to do? Krishna becomes your servant. Krishna, because he becomes won over, so totally won over by his devotees, there is nothing he will not do for his devotees. So before he's going to put himself in such a position, he has to know that he can trust you. Because his pure devotees will never, ever take unfair advantage of Krishna. And Krishna will give his heart fully to such a devotee. Now, this isn't a small thing. We know that God loves us more than we love him. But Krishna says, no, not like that. He says that I love my devotee even more than I love myself. And he's Krishna. He's God. We're capable of a small degree of love. Can you imagine how much love Krishna has? And he says that I will put all of my love on that devotee who will serve me without any tinge of contamination from any material desires. So before he's going to allow himself to give his unlimited feelings to a devotee, he wants to be sure. So no fruitive desires can be within our heart. No mental speculation. What does that mean, mental speculation? Speculating on so many things with your own limited intelligence. Krishna says, no, if you want to understand me, you'll have to do it by an authorized, bona fide teaching coming in disciplic succession. And you'll have to work for me. Not that you do any type of thing and say, I'm doing it for God. Sometimes we approach people to become our members or patrons. Please, please work for Krishna. Please give something to Krishna. And they say, don't you know? I'm doing everything I do is for Krishna. We say, we didn't know that. That's why we're coming here. We didn't know that. They said, no, I'm serving my family. That's for Krishna. I'm serving my country. That's for, and then they say, everything I'm doing, I'm dovetailing for Krishna. Then we say, well, then you can also give to this Krishna. So then they're not so talkative at that point. Then they say they have an answer. When Krishna instructs me, then I will do it. I will become your member. I will become the patron as soon as Krishna tells me. But Krishna says very clearly here, you work for me. You work for me. Whether you're a warrior like Arjuna, then fight for Krishna. If you're a businessman, then make money for Krishna. If you're a housewife, then put a deity of Krishna in your home and take care of your house for Krishna. If you're a mother or father, then raise your children to be devotees of Krishna. Whatever your ability, whatever your position, you learn how to connect it with Krishna. This is the meaning of working for Krishna. And who makes me the supreme goal of his life and is friendly to all living beings. How are you friendly to all living beings? You help them also to be Krishna conscious. You give them Krishna knowledge. That person, Krishna says, certainly comes to me. So this is the goal of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we are trying to teach everyone this goal. Sometimes people complain to us that you are limiting God by only teaching about Krishna. God has so many forms. Why are you limiting him? But you should understand, when Arjuna saw the Virat Rup, he saw all the different forms of all the different gods and demigods all enter within the form of Krishna. This form of Krishna includes every other form. And therefore, Arjuna said, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Bhavam, Purusham Shashvitam, Divyam, Adi Devam Ajambhava. You are the supreme Brahman. You are the supreme Dham, the supreme destination. You are the supreme pure, the supreme person, the source of all, the original God of all gods. So we are not just teaching by our own whimsy one form of God. Here is the supreme, original form. Adi Purusham. The original person, the original form of God. Swayam Rupa. Krishna. And therefore we are preaching about Krishna. So, take interest, please, in Krishna consciousness. Try to understand this philosophy. Try to apply it become Krishna's devotee, and you will see the benefit. There is a vast, great benefit. Far more than anything, any happiness you have ever achieved, you will find if you can become even a fraction Krishna conscious. So we'll stop here. We have a few minutes. If anyone has any questions, you can ask. We'll try to help you to understand. Such an agreeable audience. Yes?
What is the difference between the four-arm form and the two-arm form?
2 arms. The difference between the 4-arm form and the 2-arm form is 2 arms. But those 2 arms are very significant. Because, you see, with the 2 arms, Krishna plays his flute. And with the 4 arms, he holds a bunch of weapons. Well, of course, he holds some other things also. But he holds, Lord Narayan holds the club, the disc, the conch shell, and the lotus. But Krishna holds a flute. So, the disc and the club are for the demons. And the lotus and the conch shell are to give auspiciousness to the devotees. Now, so far Krishna is concerned, when it comes to killing demons, he lets the 4-arm form of Lord Narayan do it. And when it comes to giving auspicious blessings, he also lets the 4-arm form of Lord Narayan do it. But when it comes to playing his flute, he can't let anybody else do it. So this 2-arm form is especially meant for holding a flute and blowing on the flute. And it's the only thing which attracts the devotees of Krishna in Vrindavan. Whereas the others, they like to get the blessings of the lotus upon their head, you see, or hear that auspicious sound of the conch shell. But the residents in Vrindavan, they are not interested by those things. They want to hear that sound of the flute. So this is the difference. Krishna's flute playing. His 2-arm form is especially sweet and wonderful. And it's so sweet. Whereas the form of the 4-armed Narayan is awe-inspiring and great. But the 2-armed form of Krishna, which is his original form, is attractive because of its sweetness. Sweetness is better than awe. Just like a great big person. Supposing someone occupies a big position, you see, the President of the United States. Everyone is in awe. Oh, the President of the United States. But when his grandson or grandson or great-grandson sees the President, what does he do? He immediately jumps on his lap, throws his arm around his neck, and gives him a big hug. Now, who knows the President better? Actually, the person who knows him most intimately is that grandson or some family member who is not full of awe and reverence, but is full of natural love. So for the natural love, this 2-armed form is much better. Now it is time for the arti. So we are going to request everyone that you can stand, and we will have a kirtan led by Dhiro Datta Das. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.